Hey friends, I'm Greg Nettle, president of Stadia Church Planting, where our vision is for every child on the planet to have a church. We do that by helping you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches for the next generation. This podcast episode, Larrie Fraley on the podcast. Larrie was a founding member of Christ Church of the Valley in Peoria, Arizona. And today, that church, Christ Church of the Valley, reaches more than 50,000 people every week. Crazy growth and impact. The reason I love Larrie is because as I've watched Larrie age, and I say that with the greatest affection, I've never seen a man to continue to learn, continue to be adventurous, continue to be high impact like Larrie. It is an absolute delight to have this global outreach pastor from CCV on the Church Planting Podcast. Let's welcome my friend, Larrie Fraley. Larrie, welcome to the Church Planting Podcast.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here.
We've just been sitting and talking for the last half hour, and I thought to myself, man, we should have just recorded that conversation. I think it would have been fascinating.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would be the greatest career move for me, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We were having political conversations and where are we seeing the most fun in Christianity around the world? And that's why I always love getting together with you, Larrie. Larrie, we're going to be talking today about staying healthy for the long haul. And, this has been one of the passions of mine because we watch so many church leaders burn out and, just do all kinds of crazy things. And especially coming into this election year. And then, you and I talked a lot about that. And then the year after 2025, which I personally believe is actually going to be the more difficult follow-up year, perhaps that we've ever seen for leadership in our lifetime. And so, Larrie, what are you doing right now? How are you staying healthy? How are you going into this, what we know is going to be turbulent times? What's on your agenda to stay healthy?
Wow, that's a big. Are you insinuating that I'm getting older?
No, of course not. But we all are, right?
Yeah. Wow, Greg. I guess the first thing I think about is how do you stay excited? And I think that's, of course, what drives a lot of energy is that the more passion you have for what you're doing, there is this inner strength that you seem to have. But in reality, I think you have to really do a number of things to kind of stay on your game, I guess. The first thing obviously is, and that's what, no matter how old you are, you really need to seek, wisdom from God. We all have the opportunity to grow in wisdom and understanding. And I think it's Proverbs or something like that talks about the gray hair is the crown of splendor. And
Larrie, I'm not seeing any gray hair on that head.
I was going to explain. In my case, I'm a level above that,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because I have no hair, right? So it's kind of a way to attain righteousness according to what Scripture says. But I think the thing that keeps me going is to just keep embracing God's purpose during each season, because we go through each season. And for me, I love that. I love starting something and moving on because every stage of life that we have in our role, especially, has a unique purpose and opportunity to serve God. And so I've got those things. I mean, I can talk about all the stuff that it takes to stay healthy. I think what I have realized over the last few years is that you used to say that the most important thing to do in terms of a spiritual discipline or is to pray and have that personal relationship with God. And I'm not saying that that's not important, but I also know as I get older that it's very important to stay healthy. Because if you don't stay healthy, you'll be having, that relationship with God laying in a bed somewhere. And so I think I've made that a priority in my life to really make sure I take care of myself, eat properly, exercise properly. And I find when I do that, it's so much easier for all the other disciplines to take place.
Yeah,
So
okay, so I've watched that in you because I mean, you're an adventure guy like me, and you're a few years ahead of me, but I mean, I mean, you're trekking across Israel. Like I take, I've taken groups to Israel on pilgrimages and stuff, but we're not. I mean, how many miles are you hiking in Israel in the hot sun?
yeah, it's about 110, 120 if we don't get lost,
Yeah. I mean, literally, you're hiking through Israel and doing that. And I was just talking to you, you're getting ready to go to Nepal and you're going to do a big trek and then, helicopter up to base camp and all this stuff at, 18,000 plus feet. And I mean, it's a big deal. So what are you doing these days? Like physically, like do you get up and go to the gym? Do you go for walks? What are you doing to get in shape or stay in
Yeah.
shape?
Well, we're very blessed to have a gym right next door to our campus. And so every day I am on a combination of strength. It's very important for guys my age. I mean, notice I didn't say our age, um, to have good muscle strength. And so 3 days a week, I have routines that I work on just strengthening muscle. And then the other 2 days, I work on cardio. And I usually take the weekends off to kind of recover. And but I make that a priority. And I even if I have to come in early and in order to, I'm not a like get up at 5 a.m. kind of guy to do that. I used to be able to do that, but I can come in at 5 a.m. and then take off an hour and a half during the day. So I'm blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah, so I actually met with a young church planner this morning, Larry, who's getting ready to launch here in Cleveland, and he was telling me his story. And he had been a boxer in his even younger days, and but then gained a whole lot of weight, and
Yep.
but during the pandemic, made the commitment to get back fully in shape. So he looked fantastic today. But I think it's interesting because I think for all of us, we're just better. It's like a finely sharpened, tuned instrument, right?
Yeah.
The better health we keep our bodies in, the better we're going to be able to serve in the kingdom. And I realize different people have different struggles in different areas. But I mean, I've talked to my spiritual guides about that, counselors that I have, and they have actually said to me, they said sometimes, Greg, it may be more important for you to get up and get your exercise physically in than it is for you to read multiple chapters in the Bible. And I don't think we're trying to say one's better or more important than the other, but just to say they're both important, especially if you want to stay healthy for the long haul.
Yeah, it's a balance. And I mean, it's not only staying spiritually healthy and physically healthy. There's other elements. There's the whole community. Family and friends play a huge part in our mental health. And I am the most. I mean, you hear people say I'm the most blessed man in the world. And you realize that they're just kind of saying that. But in my case, I can prove it. I mean, there's I don't even need to not even doubt for a minute that I am the most blessed. I mean, look, I'm working at one of the greatest churches in the world. I mean, we've grown. God has blessed us. I'm responsible so I have the best job in the world. I would be willing
I
to
would
put my,
disagree. I would disagree because I have
I
it, but you go ahead.
well,
I'll let you
we
go ahead and
we
dream.
we can go to a mediator and I'm sure they would help you understand. But the other thing is I've got the best job in the world. I mean, come on, I'm responsible for millions of dollars of the people's the money that they've given. So I'm stewarding that. I get to decide who are the most effective organizations and actually get down to looking at their capacity and their competency and their results. And so we have a very few strategic partners that we have gone through a very thorough assessment, and Stadia is one of those. I mean,
And we're
clearly.
grateful. We're grateful.
And so I get to do that. I've got the best family in the world. I mean, I've got two daughters that's clearly at the I'd put them up against anybody, and one of them is married to the senior pastor, Ashley Woldridge, and so sometimes it's funny, Greg, because sometimes he actually thinks he's my boss.
Yeah.
And and I keep reminding him, I say, Ashley, you have to remember, that your wife loved me first.
Yes, exactly. Hey,
So
hey,
I've got
before you go on with being the best, having the
yeah,
best life,
yeah.
what you texted me, and I don't remember what was the Easter attendance for Christ Church of the Valley this year. Actually, give me the in-person number at your campuses.
Yeah, in-person number was 97,600 and something. We missed the I mean, I don't know whether it poured rain on Easter morning, and we had the Easter services all set up, and we had to cancel the Easter. We didn't cancel we moved them inside, but a lot of people stayed. So we would have went over 100, but the more important number is I almost 2,000 people, I think, stayed after services over the weekend and were baptized. And, and so, yeah, it was all campuses, 16 of them right now. We got 3 more in the hopper. And so,
Okay, Larry, let me, because this is, I can celebrate, like we're all celebrating, going, man, 100. I can't even fathom 100,000 people in a single church now. And I know there are other churches around the world, a very limited handful, but the thing that I love is the generosity of the church that you get to
mm,
lead, and the fact that you care, like you're a leader in church planting throughout the United States and around the world, and
yeah.
celebrating. I mean, I wonder what the total number is, right? That would be, as part of CCV's legacy. It would be a staggering number in the millions, I'm sure.
Well, hindsight, I wish we'd have perhaps wrote them down, but we don't, I don't even, it'd be an interesting process to try to figure that out, but we've never been too worried about the number. But the blessings that have come from, I know the churches, because I still am in contact with a lot of them, and it's been amazing. Well, with churches we've planted with you guys.
Well, Larry, and let's just talk about that for a minute, because this year at Easter, we know that Stadia churches around the globe, we're certain that we somewhere between 500 and 600,000 gathered in Stadia church plants around the globe. We're
Wow.
able to track that. So, that's your investment from Christ Church of the Valley. And that's the difference. Like, we can go, no matter how large our church is, when we think about multiplication, that's what really leaves the legacy for the long haul. So, Larry, I'm just going to circle back here, because you said that to stay healthy for the long haul, you have to stay passionate. Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, I mean, do you know approximately how many years have you been doing like full-time ministry in this kind of way?
Well, I spent the first 20 years as CCV, got started in '82, working at Intel Corporation as an IT director, and then in 1998 came on staff, and so that's how long I've been. In fact, I just celebrated last week. They gave me a 25-year anniversary award
Congratulations,
for
friend.
having 25 years on staff at CCB. But I don't even look at that because I go back. I mean, I go back 47 years when I first met Don Wilson and
Yeah,
we started.
our good
But
friend. Yep.
but yeah, so in actual passionate ministry for missions, I would say it's probably going on 15, 16 years, something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, so how do you, on that long haul, let's go to the 47 years. Um, I mean, has it shifted a lot, the vision for your life, or has it always been the same thing? Or are you getting renewed every few years? How does that happen?
Well, the first 18 years or so, or whatever it was, I was an elder and chairman of the elders, which was very involved with the church. And back when the church was starting, there was only 6 people on staff. So the elders played a big role. So it was always for me, and it's to this very day, it's always, I've always recognized that I that I'm part of something that's much bigger than I am. And that's what I think to this very day keeps me going. When you and I talk and dream about the number of churches that can be started and what the new strategies are for what's coming in the future based on our country and the world and all of that, we realize that we're both, in order to do that, is going to be part of something that's much bigger than we are. And that's what keeps me going. I see so many guys that's my age that are kind of, you know, depressed and down because they feel, they're not significant anymore in their life. And many of these guys don't realize that they're former CPAs or former CEOs or former leaders in the church. There is still so many young organizations that would love for them to come in and just counsel them on stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not done. And I have to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of maybe ego there because, one of my favorite actors is Clint Eastwood. And I don't know whether you saw that movie, The Mule,
Oh, yeah.
but Toby Keith was interviewing Eastwood on doing his theme song. And as Keith was interviewing him, he asked Eastwood what sums up his life, because that was going to be the basis of the song. And Eastwood looked at him and said, "Don't let the old man in." And so that was the theme song of The Mule. And I have to admit, there's part of me that, feels that way. Especially on some mornings when I get up and I've got an ache or something that I have to work out, I'm like, don't let the old man in, Larry. Don't let the old man in.
If you're talking to a young church planter today or a young church leader, and you're now where you're at, what sage wisdom would you give them that you look back on and go, I wish I would have known this, or I did know this, and this was really helpful?
Well, I would say, love your wife with everything you got. Be a strong team together. Make sure that you have balance in your life, and that includes time for your family as well as your church, because it's so easy for these guys. I've seen them happen. We all seen those happen where the pastor gets so wrapped up in his work, and because he obviously has the cause and he has the passion to do it, but he neglects the other parts of his life. And so you see a lot of very overweight pastors. You see a lot of very, families that are broken. I've noticed that in a lot of families of senior pastors, they're not the most healthiest. Preachers' kids sometimes can be a little weird, and so there is I'll probably get in trouble for that, but it's true, and I think a lot of it has to do with just maintaining that balance, maintaining a spirit of humility. Don't, especially for senior pastors, especially younger kids that are coming up, and they walk out of the service every week, and they're out in the courtyard or lobbying, and all of a sudden hundreds of people are around them telling them, just how wonderful they are. You just are so wonderful. You made such a blah, blah, blah. And so as I told Ashley, my son-in-law, this, I said, look, you have to be careful, because if you're being told how wonderful you are every week by hundreds of people, you're going to start believing that. And when you start believing that, you're headed in the wrong direction. So you got to fight that. And so I don't know. That's what comes to mind. I wish I'd thought about that question before.
Well, it's a great question, isn't it? And I think those answers are just spot on. I had a ministry professor, Bob Stacy. This is clear back in Cincinnati Bible College days, Larry. And Bob said to us, he said, it's okay for people to tell you that they really love the sermon and you're a great preacher. He said, that's okay, and say thank you. And he said, here's what you do. He said, collect each one like you're collecting a rose. And he said, at the end of the day, when you go to bed that night, hand the bouquet of roses to God. And Larry, that has stayed in my mind. And sometimes it was a single rose, and sometimes it was a whole bouquet, right? But it's a really good thing to go, hey, any accolades that I'm having the honor, privilege to get here, it's a gift from God, and I'm going to give that to him and say thank you. That's part of that humility thing. Okay, Larry, what are you doing right now to stay sharp? Are you reading books? Are you listening to podcasts? Is it travel? Give us the things Larry Fraley's doing right now that he's excited about.
Well, I I have to say that I'm probably at a point that I'm not reading as much as I normally do. I usually read, 1 to 2 books a month. I'm probably reading, 1 book every other month right now. But right now, I'm really trying to understand where we're at in our country, because how are we as Christians supposed to live, and how are we supposed to be the salt and light right now when we're going through, and we'll be going through probably the most difficult time that I've ever seen
Yeah.
in my life, and perhaps the history of our country and the world. Because and so what do I do? And so I'm trying to read as much as I can on what those responses should be. And I'm reading Eric Metaxas' book, Letter to the American Church.
Oh, yeah.
I'm reading Russell Moore's book. I'm reading, and those two guys are kind of at both ends of the spectrum on a Christian response, trying to figure out what is it that we're supposed to be doing. So I'm reading a lot on that, and I've come to the conclusion that I can't really take these extreme sides, but what I can do in my community is encourage more and more believers to become involved locally, become involved with the local school systems, with the city council, that if we can get strong base of believers within our community, we can make a difference. And so those kind of things are going through my head right now. And so trying to stay, I use a prayer wheel by Zume, and it's an hour prayer wheel that you can set up, and you'll go through 5 minutes segments, and you're done praying in an hour, but it feels like 10 minutes or something like that. So
Is that an app? Is that an app, or where do we get that?
I think there's an app, but you can Google Zume, Zume, prayer wheel. And it's been a real help to me, because I like the 5 minutes at a time, 5 minutes worshiping God, 5 minutes in silence, 5 minutes in meditation, 5 minutes, and you just kind of go through the wheel. Yeah.
Larry, everyone, you can see why I love talking with my friend Larry and how much we can learn. Larry, I am so grateful. Thank you for being on the Church Planting Podcast.
Absolutely. Love it. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Larry.